Hello everyone, and welcome along to another special edition of the Magical Learning Podcast. This is another in a series that we're recording at the moment with our friends at the Moira Shire Council. And wherever you happen to be on planet Earth today, welcome along. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Excited to have you here. We have some very special guests with us today, and we're continuing on this theme of business resilience in this podcast today, talking about what it looks like, what it feels like, how do we maintain it, why is it so important, what are some of the things that we can experience as business owners and people who work in businesses that can drain our resilience, and what are some of the important things that we can do individually and collectively to build more resilience. Before I introduce our special guests, I do want to just hand over to Danette Menzies, our Director of Learning and Podcast Regular. Danette, good morning. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I'm at our farm today, and it is a glorious day where it's going to be about 34 today, so nice and warm.
Okay, on to our first guest for this morning. I want to introduce, I'm very, very grateful to have with us Graeme Emonson. My apologies. Grahame is the Chair Administrator for the Moira Shire Council, a Melbourneite, if I am correct, Grahame, by background. But welcome along this morning. How has your week been so far?
Look, we've had a fabulous week, to be honest. So thank you, Grahame, for that introduction. I'm actually a Moira resident. So whilst I have spent some time in metropolitan Melbourne, I'm very, very happy to be a resident in Yarrawonga, and which is a great part of the world. Anywhere along the Murray River is fabulous, and
It is.
It's great to be enjoying life in Moira.
Excellent. Thank you. Welcome along. And if we'd known that you lived in Yarrawonga, we were down there doing some work 2 years ago. We probably would have dropped in for a cuppa just to say hi.
Absolutely.
Next time, you are warned. You are hereby welcome along. Also want to welcome our other special guest this morning, Kate Burke. Kate is an author, a thought leader, a resident of Echuca, so next door to the Moira Shire, almost within throwing distance. That would be a muffin or a scone throwing distance of Grahame. Kate, welcome along.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Grahame and Danette. And yeah, really nice to meet you, Grahame, from Moira. And it's great to be part of the team helping you out.
I do feel compelled just to mention quickly the some of the sporting memorabilia over Kate's right shoulder and or in Kate's hand. And again, for those of you who may be listening on the other side of planet Earth and are looking at the logo thinking, do yourself a favour, Google it. Come on down. Actually, better still, come on down. Visit the Moira Shire. You can say hello to Grahame. You can say hello to Kate. You can find out more about all of the amazing things that are happening there. You get to visit some of the most beautiful parts of planet Earth. And we will help you understand Australian rules football. That is our pledge. Grahame, I thought we'd start this morning, Grahame, speaking to Grahame. I just getting onto the slightly more serious aspect of the podcast. The Moira Shire Council have launched an initiative partly in response to the floods that occurred in October 2022 in that part of the country. And we're also involved as Magical Learning with you in developing and running building business resilience programs. So looking at ways that we can help business owners and their teams develop and maintain more resilience going forward. So in your role, Grahame, I'm curious to hear, looking back at the flood event in October 2022, what were some of the key lessons that the Shire Council sort of took away from that event and what occurred in the 3 to 6 months afterwards?
Yeah, the October 2022 flood event was a major event for this area, and particularly the western part of Moira. And as is the way with almost every major natural event that occurs, there are a range of learnings and lessons and things that you can do better and things that you need to actually invest in to try and mitigate and prepare for future events, because future events will occur. And I think some of the key takeaways from council, and we did a lot of debriefing with other agencies, with communities, and particularly internally. One of the fundamental learnings I think we all took away is just how integrated and how far in and across our organisation as a council a major event like that impacts. Whether it's, you know, the immediate response around participating in incident control centres, whether it's our planning and building teams out looking at buildings and septic tanks, there's road closures, there's road repairs, there's management of sandbags. But more importantly is the really important role we play in supporting communities. And we learned a lot around that. Sandbagging was a particularly sensitive issue. It's a critical issue at the time. It's a here and now issue. Often there's considerable competing demands on where they go. And so, you know, being fleet of foot, being agile, nimble, to understand where we need to allocate those sorts of resources at the time is a real challenge, particularly when you're doing it in real time. Telecommunications was something we probably didn't expect would be impacted, and we did have some impacts on the mobile phone system, particularly because of flooding. And you know, people are so reliant. Everyone is now so reliant on particularly mobile phones for where and how they take their information, and particularly in the midst of a crisis. And so there was some real lessons around that. Another really significant takeaway is just how long it takes to restore some of the important road infrastructure, road, bridge, culvert infrastructure. Unfortunately, and I don't want to be politically critical, but we have a complex process of flood recovery funding, and there's a lot of layers, a lot of check boxes to be ticked, etc., and approvals before works can start. And what that means is the community is often impacted for an extended period of time before some of that important road access infrastructure can be re-established. So the other thing I'd probably say is just how long the recovery effort needs to be managed for, particularly for businesses. Is, you know, the impacts for business can be long lasting. Particularly tourism-related businesses, but also other supply chain. And, you know, it does take a long, concerted effort to make sure that those businesses that are most impacted are properly supported along the way. And that's, I think, a real takeaway for us. We need to invest for the long term. Recovery is not the next 2 weeks when the flood waters subside. There's a lot of impact, a lot of energy and effort required in the recovery phase, particularly working with and supporting local businesses.
Great, thank you. Obviously, an event such as that, whilst you could on the outside looking in, you could think, well, okay, river floods, anybody close to the riverbanks, etc., are at much greater risk, and they're probably the most affected. But the ripple effect for everybody else, whether our shopfront ended up underwater or not, there is still that flow-on effect. And I guess there's also that the opportunity for those who aren't necessarily directly or immediately impacted to look at how they can support those who were.
Yeah, absolutely. It very often, and you know, the media plays a role in that. All the attention goes to those who were most directly affected, but the indirect impacts reverberate very widely across the municipality, across the region, and you know, we need to be mindful of that when we're in the long haul, in it for the long haul with the recovery phase.
Danette, did you have a question for Grahame?
Yes, I did. Grahame, so I'm really curious because obviously council's putting on this program, but I'm sure that there's a lot of other things that the council is doing to strengthen that resilience for business and also just for the community throughout the Shire. So I'd love to hear some of the things that you're doing.
Yeah, so The concept of resilience, and it can be a bit of a nebulous term, but in mine, it's a pretty simple interpretation of resilience, and that is how we best prepare for major events. How do we understand the risks? How do we develop mitigation strategies to make sure that when these events do occur, and they will occur in the future, that we're as well positioned as we can be? And when I say we, I mean, individuals, organisations, and the greater collective. Resilience is also about then how we respond at the time. And, if we understand, if we're prepared, our ability to have the capacity to respond at the time will be strengthened. And that goes to even psychosocial preparedness. Quite often we experience a lot of trauma through natural events. And if we can put in strategies to assist people to be better prepared, be more resilient to the shocks and the disruptions that might occur, overall community wellbeing will be much stronger. And then resilience obviously is a really key part of recovery. So when natural events do occur, there are often major impacts, major disruption. Having strategies in place, both physical strategies, but also mental strategies in place to ensure that people are as best prepared to be in it for the long haul of recovery, again, will enable people to recover more quickly, and will ensure that people's psychosocial states are as optimised as possible. And I'm not suggesting for one moment that we take all the stress and the anxiety out of recovery of natural events, but if we can have the foundations in place to enable people to be better prepared and more resilient in the recovery phase, everyone will be better off.
Thank you, Grahame. And I'll hand back to the other Grahame now.
Thanks, Danette. Thanks, Grahame. Kate, I did want to just check in with you to see whether there was any questions, anything popping up for yourself for the other Grahame.
So I'll call you GE and GG. General Electric, Grahame. I think what you described, what pinged for me, is the before, during, and after, and the three components to that: the people component, the dollar component, because it all, we've got limited resources, and just progress. So whether the technical component, so whether that's the progress of being able to conduct your business, or the progress of ensuring that how the town's assets are protected are done efficiently. And often it's I notice during an event, particularly having experienced it over here in the Campaspe Shire, of course, at Chuka and Rochester, is that often it's the being able to lead under pressure and lead with empathy can be a challenge for those that are very technically good at what they do in emergency situations, but sometimes perhaps a little tone deaf to that distress that's on the ground. And so I think, that's a really good framework to think about it like that.
And I think just adding on that, Kate, is that quite often council staff that are front and centre in recovery, quite often they've also been impacted
Absolutely
by the natural event. And so it's resilience is a really, really important aspect from a council staff perspective, because they are very often directly impacted as well, and being expected through their roles to be supporting a community and at a time of need. Yeah.
And I think there's an issue there of having to deal with the unfairness of it all. We saw a lot of things that felt unfair, and particularly I felt that at local government level that, you can't comment on this, but I can, that there was a tendency for other levels of government to, be selective about what responsibilities they took when they were speaking to media and things like that. And it was the local government councillors and staff that often got thrown under the bus. And and that's just the fact of life. That's politics. So things will happen that are unfair, and part of resilience is learning how to deal with stuff that's unfair. And I guess being able to lead with empathy under pressure has been one of my big things post the floods.
Some of your comments, Grahame, and the point you made, Kate, about the fact that, and I was thinking sort of first responders, but sometimes it's maybe more, to use a term, first and second responders, but it is often the people who the community and affected people are looking to provide a solution, to provide some relief, to provide some certainty, because we know the human brain loves certainty. It does not feel comfortable when it doesn't know what's going on. When's this going to be fixed? How long is it going to last? What does it mean for my business, my family, my friends, etc.? The importance of being able to help people who have a more active and more important role immediately after a disaster event. Part of the challenge or the opportunity, I guess, is how do we help support and develop them so that even if they are directly affected, which is also possible during an event such as that, they have learned to build and to maintain better resilience, so that the important part of their brain, the logical, rational side, can kick in more than the emotional side, and also help them stay calmer, because I think that the empathy thing becomes so important. If I'm an affected business owner who's just experienced something that was completely unexpected, even though maybe I should have expected it, but I didn't, and on the first surface of it, it just looks like a total disaster. The last thing that I'm going to be in that state is calm. And the thing that's going to benefit me most is when I'm dealing with people who represent whatever level of authority, government, local government, state emergency services, whatever it happens to be. But if they show up in a calm, empathetic state, that's going to have a huge impact on me.
Yeah.
That was a very long exposition. Sorry about that. I do that sometimes. It's called thinking out loud.
We found in it's a different location, but for GE, I live across the road from the river, so we had this firsthand in our street, and we found in that situation it was quite self-organising. So it's about identifying the people that can help and have the skills to help. So we had the former Shire engineer, he's retired Shire engineer, he's my neighbour, and I've got a background in agriculture and being able to read data. So the two of us got together and then went down to the one house that was very distressed, and then the street, and and basically gave them a yarn about probabilities and what these probabilities meant. And then Alf pulled out his old surveying equipment, and we did levels for every house in the street that thought they were going to be at risk. And people took different roles, and so those that were calm and able to manage in a crisis and be solution focused sort of fell into leadership roles, and I guess I was one of those. And then those that could recognise that other people needed answers but they didn't have the skills to do it, they put them in contact with the people that did have the skills. And I think that's the nice thing about human nature is that ultimately you see lots of good things come out of it, like the guys further west of here that put 36 kilometres of levee bank around the Gunbower area, and they just contacted the shires, contacted the government and said, we know this is what needs to happen because it happens every other time, and they got the permission to do it, and away they went and worked literally 24-hour shifts for about a week.
Local leadership combined with local knowledge is just so invaluable in this type of environment, and you can't import that.
No.
It would be a lesson I would have, having been through a number of major emergencies. I think we as in government, we need to do everything within our power to ensure that where there is local leadership and certainly the local knowledge, that it is actually empowered. Government cannot be, and response agencies cannot be everywhere. It's just not possible. And the strength of response and then recovery does largely rely on local knowledge and local leadership. So it's no accident that Moira Shire has actually embarked on our own civic and community leadership program. In fact, we've just last night appointed our second group to go through several months program of developing individual and collective leadership, and that's all about embedding leadership at all levels of the community. And we all know that our communities will be stronger and richer and better if we've got great leadership capacity at all levels, and it really does come to the fore in times of crisis.
I think it's about embracing the knowledge of the elders too.
Yep.
Grahame, over here, I took my farming neighbour who's 92, 91, I think, and we went for a drive, around a 20k circuit just so he could tell me where the water went and how long it was going to last. So he had lived experience from 56, the 70s, the 90s, and sometimes I think we forget about those elders, particularly people like retired engineers or retired directors of nursing that have, done it all before. Retired Shire CEOs, perhaps.
The importance and power of community. And it's, I guess it's never more evident, particularly in Australia, when we do experience a disaster, and it is always quite heartwarming to see how communities can come together. So I guess part of perhaps one of the outcomes from the program, the initiative that Moira Shire are leading at the moment, is helping to remind all of us that community exists and can be maintained and strengthened in the midst of amazing times, not just when bad things happen. I'm very mindful of time, folks, and I wanted to just pause quickly, if I can, to just share briefly some of the specific events that are coming up as part of the Moira Shire Council's Building Business Resilience program. We have a breakfast happening in Numurkah on the 18th of February, so 2.5 weeks approximately from when we're recording this. So Tuesday, the 18th of February at the Shamrock Hotel in Numurkah. We're going to put details as a registration link will be at the end of this podcast recording, or you can reach out to the Moira Shire Council. I wanted to mention, because I'm mindful that I didn't do this very well at the start, that Kate is going to be our guest speaker at that event. And Kate has a very long background and extensive research experience in agriculture and particularly in resilience. And Kate, I just wanted to pass back to you for a minute now, if you can perhaps just give potential attendees of that breakfast event maybe a snapshot of what they can expect.
Sure, thanks, Grahame. I guess my message will be about a message of hope, and that any Australian business is an example of resilience, particularly those businesses that have been going on for generations. We've had COVID recently. We've had these flood events, and fires keep popping up everywhere. So we really are the land of droughts and flooding rains. And I think if we look back prior to that, though, world wars, all those sorts of things, we're humans by nature are very resilient. Humans by nature have the ability to be productive and maintain their wellness to a point. And I guess what I want to focus on in this talk is what that means in a business context. So I do a lot with farm business and also with small agribusiness service provider, like retailers, things like that, as well as corporate agriculture. So what it means from a business point of view, what's it mean from a personal point of view? I've been on a personal journey for nearly 20 years of working on my own resilience. I was an agronomist through the millennial drought, and by the end of it, exacerbated by the 2010 flood, I was actually cooked by the end of that. So I've learnt the hard way of how to maintain your thinking machinery and how to put personal strategies in place and focus on what you can control. So that will be my giving practical examples and we'll go through some exercises of identifying what's important to us and what we can control and what we can do about it.
Yeah.
And And I guess my passion around this area, having lived through this flood, and as some of your listeners might be aware that during the flood, I started a thing called the Flog, which was the flood blog. And it was just a way of communicating what we were going through and giving messages out to people of how to deal with stuff, but also messages out to the various organisations and levels of government about what we actually really needed, and that I thought wasn't happening at the time. And I'm actually due for another episode to celebrate that after 1,000 days, the road that my farm's on has finally been graded. And because we didn't qualify Grahame for the various bits because it's a dirt road and the holes weren't long enough or deep enough to get the tick. So that's the sort of stuff we'll cover on the day. It's
Brilliant.
Love the area, really passionate about the area, got great family friends in that area. Even been to the footy at the road to watch the Numurkah seconds a couple of years ago. So happy to yarn about football too.
Thanks, Kate. So again, for anybody listening, watching, thinking, should I go, should I not go? You absolutely should. If you are a business owner and or team member working in a business in the Moira Shire in particular, the 18th of February at the in Numurkah, again, the link will be at the bottom of this, or at the back end of this recording, and we would encourage you to come along. And you can hear more about Kate. Danette and I will also be there. Grahame, as in GE, Grahame, I'm not sure about your movements, your availability for the breakfast event. I apologise.
No, unfortunately, I have another commitment that's a long-standing commitment on that day, but we will be well represented there with Moira Shire senior people.
Thank you.
Compulsory attendance to anyone who's a Shannon or related to Shannons, and that should fill your room.
Challenge accepted. Challenge accepted. Thank you. Just a couple of other quick things before we go around the group to wrap up. I also wanted to mention that, again, in collaboration with Moira Shire, so Danette and I at Magical Learning will also be running, so we'll be emceeing the breakfast event on the 18th of February. We also have 2 half-day workshops coming up on the 17th and 18th of March. They will be in, at this stage, I think, Cobram. One will be in Cobram, one will be in Numurkah. So 17, 18 March, again, open to any business owner in the Moira Shire. And we would strongly encourage you to come along. So Danette and I, Magical Learning, we've spent the last 25, 26 years in working with businesses domestically and overseas. We also do a lot of coaching. And a lot of our research in the last 15 to 20 years has been around things like resilience and brain science and communication and emotional intelligence and communicating in teams, managing stress, all of the fun stuff, all of the fun things about being human. So in addition to the workshops in March, there will also be opportunity for Moira Shire business owners to work with us on a more of a one-on-one basis. So we'll be providing some coaching and mentoring support throughout April and May. To find out more about all of that, come along to the breakfast. If your surname is not Shannon, we will let you in anyway. Correct, Kate? But I do want to, so please keep an eye on the link at the end of this recording, or just contact the Moira Shire Council if you would like to find more. Grahame, just passing back to you now. Any final comments or thoughts before we wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Grahame. And this program is very specifically being provided by Moira Shire Council in recognition of the substantial contribution and benefit that our business community makes to the overall well-being and livability of Moira Shire. And anything we can do to support businesses to be strong, healthy, viable, and to be successful in our local community is in everyone's interests. And we have clearly identified that creating higher levels of resilience at all levels of our community, but particularly in this instance, our business community, is a great investment we can make. So we would encourage any business owner or employee across Moira Shire to get along to the breakfast. This is a fabulous program. Kate, you'll learn a lot from Kate. And there's an opportunity beyond the breakfast, obviously, to participate through mentoring. It's a fabulous opportunity and investment in our local business community, and we'd encourage as many people to get along as possible.
Brilliant. Grahame, thank you. And also, just want to echo or share our appreciation for the and it's not just the financial investment, but the investment that Moira Shire Council are making in this specifically for business owners in the Shire. Kate, any final thoughts from yourself before we finish?
I'm just looking forward to it, and I guess one of the great things about coming along to a breakfast is just seeing other people and chatting to your mates and making new friends and new business contacts. That's I think there's nothing like human contact in the flesh, and our bodies and brains just do really weird stuff when we're in a room full of people, and it makes us feel good. So come along and enjoy it.
Love it. Thanks, Kate. And Danette, any final thoughts?
Really looking forward to the breakfast, the workshops and the coaching and mentoring. And as Grahame pointed out, it's not just for business owners, but also business employees. So if you are at all interested, you're going to learn more about your brain and just really practical ways of being more resilient. So really looking forward can't wait for the breakfast and seeing everyone. Thanks, Grahame.
Brilliant. Thank you. Okay, again, wrapping up, Grahame, Kate, thank you so much for sharing your time and some of your wisdom and experience with us today. Really appreciate it. For those listening, again, if you are in the Moira Shire, please come along to the breakfast on the 18th of February. Looking forward to seeing you there. And as always, have a magical week.